Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Hey, whether you know it or not, or really want to admit it or not, we all have something that we need to heal from. And it's probably putting a block on your life and not allowing you to move forward. What is it? What are you healing from? We're going to find out. We're going to dig into that and give you some ways that you can heal from many different things. She's a master healer and a shaman, and she's the owner of Godai Healing Arts. Alwena Caru joins us again on the program. Alwena, how you doing?
I am doing well, Steve. And how are you today?
I'm well. Good to have you back. And we started talking about a number of different things the last time we got together. Akashic Records, which kind of holds the mystery of all of us, which you're able to, through intuition and I guess all your learnings through teachings, able to access those records. You know what? Before we even begin, if somebody didn't hear that last time we talked or last couple of times about Akashic Records, what exactly are they?
So the Akashic Records is the record of every thought, every action, every emotion, every behavior, and every lifetime that you've ever lived. So everything that you have ever done in your pure existence, it is the record of all of that combined. Past, present, future.
When we say the records, who's keeping these records?
That is a great question, right? Wouldn't we like to know who's keeping the records? And really, you can look at it, if we look at Christianity, it would be God's book of life, right? So God holds all the records of every individual. And spiritual people will look at it as source. It's all the energies that are flowing in and out. They never dissipate, they just transmute and they change into different forms.
Okay. So would that be, when we think about karma and doing the right thing, when you don't do the right thing, does that go in part of the records?
It does go into part of the records. Now, karma is not a punishment, just so everybody knows. It's definitely not a punishment.
We always think of it that way. Man, I hope karma comes back. I hope it serves them well, and sooner than not. Or we always joke, hey, the karma cops are pulling up for you, or the karma train is pulling up. Karma. There's good karma, and then there can be, right, bad karma.
Yes, absolutely. And it's just all about what seeds are you planting? Are you putting out the negativity and planting all those seeds, and those trees are sprouting and growing negativity fruits?
Mm-hmm.
Or are you planting the love seeds where they're growing and they're planting and fruiting abundance and more love and joy and peace?
Wasn't planning to talk about karma. It was
definitely not.
I was wondering if the Akashic Records hold that information, because for me, I always say do the right thing. Like, it's always like hashtag do the right thing. But I always wonder if that is being retained in those records. What's your thoughts on karma? If somebody's not doing the right thing, do you feel that it'll come back to them at some point?
It will. And it's just a matter of, is it going to come back instantly? Like the person that steals your parking space and then they trip on the way in and they fall down. You're like, well, that's instant karma. Or is it going to come in a later lifetime where you're building it up in this lifetime, and the next one you live, you're going to have to start to heal all that karma that you've built up in previous lifetimes. And as we do heal that so-called bad karma, and it dwindles down, then we get into the ones from our past lives. So we start to heal that, and then so on and so forth. But again, yes, karma is recorded in the records, and there's different kinds of karma. But beyond that, we also have karmic entanglements with other people here on Earth.
What's that mean?
So what that means is, imagine you're a part of a group. I'm going to try to take the easiest approach to explain this without teaching you all an entire class on karmic entanglements. But say you're part of a group, whether it's a motorcycle group, maybe you're part of the Rotary Club, maybe it's an art guild, whatever group it is. And when you think about that group, what is your emotional reaction to that group? Are all your thoughts in line with the group's thoughts? Is it a group collective? Do you only believe what the group believes? And that would really give you an idea of if you're karmically entangled with a group of people. And there's a reason that you're part of this group, to heal a piece of what's going on. And the other part of karmic entanglements is to learn to break them and step away and really come into your own energy, your own power, your own core essence, so that you know who you truly are without being influenced by the external world.
So it's almost kind of blocking out, let's say you're in that group, kind of blocking out their influence and really getting within and seeing who you are, and maybe also how that group might serve you.
Yes. Yes. Or how they're not serving you as well.
Yes. Yeah.
See how maybe they're actually damaging pieces of your timeline.
I want to share, it just popped in my head about karma, and this could be completely ridiculous, but last weekend I'm playing tennis with my older daughter. I mean, like, we hardly ever play, like maybe once a month, if that, when it's warm out. And there was a bee flying by me, my yellow jacket, and it's like all over me. I'm like, took my racket and went, whew, and the bee dropped down. He seemed okay, just kind of stunned. And I took my racket, and I didn't want to crush him or anything. I was kind of like pushing him off the court, getting him out of the way. Don't want to step on him, just boom, over the side. Not even, and I'm thinking about it, don't want to hurt him, want to do the right thing, never want it to come back, to me in any way. Not more than 60 seconds later, I'm at the net, and I go to hit the ball fired from my daughter. It nails me right here and drops me right to the ground. Just like never happens. And I really believe that was bee karma. I really think that because, and maybe I put the intention out there, and I was thinking it when I had that bee, and I was kind of getting off the court. And maybe he was hurt a little bit, but I had some bruising for a day or whatever. But it hit me in the face. So I don't know if there was a connection there, but I truly feel there was. It's like, okay, all right, it came back.
Yeah. That definitely feels like a little bit of instant karma there, Steve.
It does feel like instant karma. Yeah.
You weren't trying to hurt him, but you did. So it's all, here you go.
And then I got hurt a little bit. So, and almost the same way. I got whacked in the head. He got whacked in the head.
Yep.
When you just mentioned the word timeline. Now, what do you mean by that? There's a timeline?
Yeah. So we all live on a timeline. And we can jump timelines into our highest timeline. That's where we all want to be, honestly. Our highest timeline is the one where we're not overthinking, we're not overwhelmed, we're free of the fears and the anxieties and the worries, is in that highest timeline, because we're really in tune with our core essence. But we go through these timelines, right? Because we come in conception, and then we grow in utero. And a lot happens while we're in utero. Just so you know, we're picking up energies from everybody that's around mama, being in the womb, dad being around, people touching the belly. Those energies are definitely transferring back and forth. And then once we're born, we also have our yearly growth. And each year, we may experience a micro trauma, we may experience a big trauma, we may just experience hearing something a teacher said in elementary school that completely changed how we move forward in life. Yep. And a perception of how we move forward in life. So when we work with these timelines, we start to go back and see what's going on to heal anything in any year. And the greatest part about it, I will tell you, Steve, is, okay, this may not sound great to all the viewers and the listeners. At birth, we are in a society right now where we have a ton of birthing trauma. So everybody's pretty much coming out of the womb traumatized, because women were not meant to give birth on their backs with their legs up in stirrups. It's actually a very unnatural position for women to give birth in. And in addition, we have all the fluorescent lights coming down, which is very unnatural. It used to be a very darkened room scenario, very peaceful and calming, but now it's very like rush in, get the baby out, make sure the baby's out, cut the cord. And that too is a trauma to both mama and baby when the cord is cut so soon, because they don't have the bonding. It's actually meant for the baby to come out, bond with the mama skin to skin with the cord still attached. And the cord really should stay attached for at least 12 hours, at least 12 hours after the baby's born. So we do all technically come out of the womb traumatized. And now with C-sections, that creates even more trauma, because you don't get the actual energetic release of the baby coming through the vaginal canal and mama experiencing that as well. So there's additional traumas where it's the bond is broken. Okay, so we really want to be bonded with our children, and then it gets broken in our process that we have today. So a lot of timeline healing does come back to, let's clear out birthing trauma, birthing echoes, whatever's going on there. But it just goes down the line. And once we start clearing those out on the timeline, so say I'm 37. So I would start at 37 and say, okay, what's going on here? 36, and go down the line all the way back into utero. Once we clear those out, what's going to happen is this timeline that we're on, and we're healing those echoes, we're shifting, and we're actually changing the timeline. So instead of being on the one that's going like this, where all these little branches are coming out, we're jumping and jumping and jumping. So if you can imagine going to sleep thinking that your life is just the worst thing you've ever experienced, it's hell on earth, and you wake up the next morning and you're like, life is the most precious gift I've ever had. I no longer feel pain. I no longer feel the trauma. I no longer have the worries. You can see colors in a whole new way, connect with Mother Earth in a whole new way. It's absolutely gorgeous.
How does that happen where you go to bed one day and it's just horrific? And then the next day you wake up and it's like, hey, everything's okay. And birds are singing. I feel great. Can't wait to bounce out of bed and start my day. How do you go from one to the other?
I'm going to use the shower analogy, because I think that's one people will really get is you've worked all day, you're super dirty. Maybe you're covered in mud. If you're like my husband, you're covered in metal shavings because he's a welder, and grease. So you have all that on you, right? Sweat, grease, mud, dirt, and you leave it there and you don't shower for a week, and it builds up day after day after day. By day 7, you're just like feeling absolutely nasty, right? Like you just like get it off, get it off, get it off. You go and you take a shower and you come out clean and refreshed. That is what it feels like. Is really right now when we're not doing these clearings and these energetic healings and cutting cords, and we're just constantly taking on everybody else's stuff and not being in our own. It's like caking that dirt on, caking that sweat on, and living in it and living in filth. And what it does on the emotional level is, we're full of anxiety, we're depressed, we're fearful, we overthink about the outcomes of what might happen. And we get it out, and we take a shower, and we cleanse it all off, and we step into the world renewed.
How do you cleanse somebody on their timeline? How do you do that?
On their timeline?
Yeah.
In their timeline, I'm looking for what are called echoes or imaginal selves. Okay, so if you could imagine that we are holographic projections, that when a trauma happens, we're almost like a 3D image without the 3D glasses. So you're kind of looking at like this phased out piece of yourself. So that's what I'm looking for in the timeline healings. That when I go through each year, is there an echo? Is there a piece that's just not quite aligned? And we clear out thought forms and emotional forms, any dirty energies that have been stagnant, any limiting beliefs that don't belong to them, like they've picked up from their parents or somewhere else. We've talked about limiting beliefs a lot. We cleanse that out and then realign them so they are really just nice, solid, back to wholeness. So they don't have these little, that's why they're called echoes, because it's like this, like they're phasing. And then we bring them back to the forefront, back to the core, back to alignment.
How do you see the timeline? Like if you were going to do it on me,
Mm-hmm.
how would you look at my timeline? Where would you begin? I don't mean that, beginning now, but I mean, what's the starting point to figuring out somebody's timeline?
So the starting point is I get you into a nice meditative state. So I take you up. It's almost like hypnosis. We'll call it hybrid hypnosis, where you're in a really good meditative state. And then I tap into your Akashic records. So we go really high into the records dimensionally, energetically. And I start asking questions just in my head. Like, what are we looking for? Where are we at? What's this related to? Show me. And I do. I ask them to show me exactly where this echo is. And then once I'm shown, we dive down to the shamanic modality down into the underworld. And I start doing the healing down there. So what happens is it's like looking at your body if you were just a beam of light in front of me and going, where's the dark spot? Taking that dark spot, removing it, transmuting it, and disintegrating it so that now it is no longer attached to you.
When you're looking at the timeline, Alwena, would you say as you're going through, it's like, oh, what happened there in 2012? You want to tell me about that?
Mm-hmm.
You look like you see those things.
Yep.
So my next question is, I'm a believer in terms of astrology that astrology is basically a timeline.
Yes.
And I've had astrologers read me even in the last year, and they would go back, and that's just based on your date of birth, time of birth, location, your name. And they would even say, oh, yeah, I got something here. What happened? That this year is significant for you. I'm like, yes, it was. And they'll go, through the timeline. Is it kind of similar to that?
It is kind of similar to that. And the
Hmm.
great part about astrology is, yes, you can see your present life timeline through the astrological chart and where the planets are aligning and how it's coming in together, where they're intersecting, which is beautiful. The difference between the astrology and for me is that I can take you back in utero and then beyond to prior to conception. So now we're going back into, do we have echoes in a past life? Or can you see your higher self? Can you channel through your purpose? And this will come out of people that have not had spiritual experiences before, where they will start channeling their higher self when we go back prior to conception. So they're unlocking their channels of their abilities because we all have them.
I agree. I think we all have some kind of intuition, but it's being able to tune into it.
Yes.
And I will tell you this, people tell me, astrologers and psychics and people who are intuitive will say to me, yeah, you know what? You're quite intuitive. And I was like, yeah, whatever. And when I started tuning in a little bit more to it, I would get thoughts and signals and signs and even my own personal life or even others, I'd say, I might want to think that over again, whatever it might be. But I feel like my point is, I feel like I tuned in a little bit more. Am I to the point of view or others? No, but I'm more in tune with it. And once you are, it's actually pretty cool.
It is. It is. And the more people that could just sit and feel how their body feels when they're stressed and really take note of like what's going on inside their body when they're stressed or what's going on inside their body when they feel calm and relaxed, it will help them to tune that intuition so that they can know prior to making a decision or prior to meeting with somebody what type of little feelings they might be getting in their body
Yeah.
on whether or not that's the right path to take.
It's like you need the baseline. So
Yeah.
how does it feel when things are good? How does it feel when a thought is bad or a bad situation? And now you know where it sits, and then you just gotta listen for the sign. When you do timeline healing, is it a process that takes multiple sessions, or is somebody get with you and even in the first session you're digging into the timeline, you're back to, 2009, whatever it might be?
It's usually a timeline healing is incredible one session. It's an incredible one session. I
Wow.
can tell you that. I actually did one over the weekend. And he was unable to speak in his meditative state to me when we were going back year by year. So what I was doing was watching his body.
Hmm.
And I would say something and I would see like, okay, are his eyes getting like squinty? Is he scrunching? His legs would start moving up and down in certain areas. And then I'd be like, okay, I know exactly what we need to do.
Hmm.
When I got him back past conception, so before he came into conception, he tapped in to a past life that he was actually an extraterrestrial on a ship. And he channeled this being through. And this is the only time he talked to me during this entire session. And it was in a completely different voice. And he told me exactly who he was, what his ranking was, why he was on the ship. And the best news for, I think, everybody, which is why I'm allowed to share this with you guys as well, I had with permission, is this being that channeled through him, through this healing, did say Earth will prevail. To just be patient. Remember who you are. And Earth will be full of greatness in the coming years.
Thank you for sharing that. And it would be great if we all heal from what ails us so that we can all be better, as Earth prevails. Do you feel that we all have past lives? Does everybody?
Yeah. So we have baby souls, and then we have more intermediate souls, and we have star seeds, which are the ones that did come in from other star systems, other planets. Then we have the old souls. And I do believe that everybody has a past life. Everybody. We are in such a time right now that I don't believe that any soul would just pop in here and be like, ooh, let's experience this on the first go round. We are all here to ascend the planet, to ascend ourselves, to ascend humanity, to really bring us up to a level where we understand what's truly out there more than just wondering what could be out there.
What do you think's out there?
I think we are a part of an amazing network of so many collectives, and they are just waiting for us to join them in these higher dimensions.
So we would all individually join different networks, or we'd be networked together?
We would be networked together where we actually see these beings, where we are no longer this separated species from everything else, that we understand our place in the universe and how we are all connected, and not just humanity, humans being one and being whole, but how we are all connected, even these other races.
So I just had a question going back to timeline because it clicked in my head. When you do a timeline healing, how are you healing somebody? Let's say 2012, something happened there. Pretty major in your life, huh? Yes, it was. How do you heal from that?
So how I go in is we're going to find that echo, that little shift, right? I'm gonna stick my hand in there and I'm gonna pull out that energy
Okay.
and then clear it off. Well, clear it off of me. Everybody needs to make sure that they're cleansing themselves if they're healing others, please.
Mhm. Definitely.
Definitely, definitely. But it's going in and really pulling it out with the timeline healings. There is the other version of this healing where you are not quite so deep into a hybrid hypnosis state where you talk to me. I'm going to ask you questions. You're going to be meditating, and then you're going to tell me exactly what you see. And then you're going to go through and heal it. And I'm going to place all this energy inside of it. So what it's doing is, while you see the visions, all the energy that's going in is transmuting the entire situation. And you're pulling through from source a whole new perspective.
I'm amazed that you can do that typically in one session.
Yeah.
And when we say a session for timeline healing, how long does it typically last?
A timeline healing session is about 2 hours.
Okay. Yeah, because I mean, you got to get somebody in the right state of mind and do the work. And you could be going back pretty far to identify those things. Final question on that. How many traumas, or what's the most that you discovered with somebody in doing a timeline healing?
In doing a timeline healing, it really depends on the person.
Sure.
So one of the people had a trauma almost every year because they were being re-triggered into being re-traumatized. Okay. So with that, what I do is I go, okay, I see that this is actually a layer. We need to get to the root. Where did it start? When did the first trauma happen? And then we will jump from 37 down to it happened at 8. Okay, let's jump. We're going to pull out the root and we're going to heal the root. And now all of a sudden, that entire timeline has just shifted.
It's almost like you ripped it all out. It's like tentacles, and they all go out, and now they're into different years, trigger along. But if you go back to the source of the tentacle and rip it off,
the
rest goes away.
Thus, we always want to heal at the origin. Get deep in there.
Super cool stuff. Wow. Your website, if somebody's thinking this might work for me, even just healing in general, how do they reach you?
My website is Godai. That's spelled Godai, healingarts.com.
Free consultation with people?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I offer 30-minute free consultation, especially if you have no idea what you need. We will go through what's going on, and we'll take a look into the energy that you're actually producing in your aura, and read through that to see what we need to do.
So cool. And it's like, I think back to myself, and I know, there's certain things there, from my childhood and things like that. And I think I know where I need to go. I've had hypnosis before, and I said, take me back to my childhood. This is where we're going. I know where I need to go. But I think a lot of us would be pretty surprised to find out there's a lot of other stuff going on there you might not have realized.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And you may remember the one from childhood, but it could have started in utero.
This is very true. Yeah. And what you said before, Alwena, with the birth of babies coming out, fluorescent lights and all that, makes perfect sense. I mean, you're in a womb. It's dark. You're comfortable. That's your happy spot.
Yeah, you don't want to leave. It's nice and warm.
Right. And then what do you come out to? You come out to all these lights, people staring at you. You've never seen a person before. Now you can see them like totally brightly clear in your face. I can't imagine. Not fun being a baby at that moment, and starting a little trauma right there. Yeah.
Yep.
Great talking with you today. Fascinating stuff. And GodaiHealingArts.com, Godai healingarts.com. Go there, get the free consult, just learn some more. Alwena, always great having you on with us.
Oh, it was such a pleasure, Steve. Thank you so much.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.